How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to a discussion on nothing, where we talk about nothing, and seem to have a pretty good time doing so. I'm Daniel, or I'm whoever. I'm whatever. It's whatever. But today we got kind of a couple guest, right? It's like a guest that's a couple.
You're leading us into getting naked on camera. I knew it.
I'm gonna try. We'll see what happens.
We're totally into it. I'm just calling it out.
Says I'm definitely not saying no. I'm just letting you know I know where this is headed, so it should be easier now, right? You guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves? Say hello to the beautiful people.
I'm Takina, or that's what they call me. I'm not good at talking about myself. Better at talking about ideas.
And I'm Dustin. And I've been sober for exactly 6 seconds.
Well, welcome to the show, guys. Glad to sit and chat with you guys. I hope you guys don't have any expectations, because there's the funny part about this show is it's like, I'm sure there's probably going to be a group of people out there that is like, this show literally is pointless. Like they're like, there's really no point. Like, obviously there's no point. There's no ultimate point that we're trying to reach with this, but there's a point to it. Otherwise, like, why would we be chatting about it? Right. So there's a point. But there's going to be people that are like, there's literally no point to this. This is like a spoof channel where they're just like, they just have nothing to talk about, and they just want to ramble on for.
That sounds fun. Just like leading people into thinking you're talking about something valuable, but you're not.
Right. I always thought it would be so great to start something real serious, but have it lead to nothing. Have it lead to like.
It's essentially the Seinfeld of Zoom.
There you go. So that's what we're doing. Right? You gotta get that slap bass like keyboard going.
Yes, that slap in the bass.
God fucking damn it.
No, you guys are some of my favorite people to chat with about I'll say reality. We'll use the word reality, I think. Because that's pretty, there's a lot of words to use, right? But reality seems to be the one that pops up in our discussions sort of together the most, which is funny. And I loved what you said the other day, when you asked, well, what are we going to talk about? I said, well, reality. And you said, well, that's kind of, how are we going to do that?
Yeah, I believe I said something to the effect of, but what is that? None of us really know. We got so many paradigms we've created in our head about what reality is. We don't see anything very clearly.
Absolutely. And that's something, that we chat about a lot on this show, is just sort of the concepts that we build, right? And like taking those concepts as reality, and like, instead of sort of witnessing what reality is, because like reality in its like ultimate definition, right, is like the way things are before you have any thoughts about it, right? Like, which would mean that like it's now before you think about it being now.
Where was it? I can't grasp it.
Yeah, I mean, you're chasing something that by the time you've like caught it, quote unquote, it's gone. So it's like you're chasing something completely illusory. But we love doing it. Like I adore like doing this, chatting about this stuff and just literally like chasing my own tail. But there's merit to it, I think. There's some type of I don't want to say like I don't use words to make it seem like there's some sort of leg up that I'm trying to achieve or some type of thing like that, or like that there's even one to achieve, because there's not, right? Like there's not a leg up. Like this is it. Like the way things are going, like right this very second, that's it. That's reality. That's how it is. We can put labels on it and like call it certain stuff. Even calling it now is sort of doing that, right? It's creating this falsehood of what it is.
Preconceptions, words are tricky. We all have a different idea of what that word means.
Exactly. Like for me, now means, you know, the present moment, like the actual physicality and like beingness of the present moment, right? Which is constant, and it even though some people's definitions, right, so of now means the one I just talked about 2 seconds ago. My definition of now is a fluid definition of now. It doesn't ever stop. You know, just like you'd say the river, right? Well, the river is a completely different river than it was yesterday, right?
10 minutes ago.
But
if you misinterpret that in the wild, that could be really dangerous. If you think that's the same river you crossed 3 years in a row and you misinterpret it 1 year, that ends dangerously.
Yeah. And, you know, there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of sort of misinterpreting. There's a lot of, oh, well, that's the river. I got that figured out. It's cool. That's the river. And that's sort of where I think a lot of people are on autopilot sort of nowadays. Like, I see a lot of my friends posting about their uptight Christian, you know, family members or friends. And I just sort of, I chuckle because, you know, these poor people are going through this nonsense for something that, you know, they're almost getting force fed because of the conditioning that they're allowing. And that's sort of the ironic part of it all, right? Is like I have a lot of friends that are super religious. I'm not talking spiritual. I'm not talking like, you know, open-minded in any sense. I mean, they are dead set. This is how things are. This is what it is. This is God's this thing, and that's that. You know, everything's very structured and this is that. And I laugh it off, you know. I laugh it off. I listen. But, you know, the stuff that's ridiculous, you know, which a lot of stuff that I say people can see as ridiculous, but that's the beauty of opinion, right? Like, that's the utmost beauty of opinion is like, you get to. And I get to also, you know, go, this is ridiculous and brush it off. But I see these people that are just stuck in sort of this like, well, because they're my friend, I have to deal with that. I have to let them shove it in my face. I have to let them such and such. And the thing is like, someone can shove it in your face, but it's up to you to allow it. And I don't mean, hey, get out of my face. I mean, and you go this way, right? There's a difference between sort of combating somebody and then sort of just moving on, right?
Well, and I think there's genuine merit in actually trying to get a grasp of what they're saying, because what I've learned through myself having known so many people who are of varying different religions, having practiced different religions myself, having kind of broached those subjects in my own personal experience, there's merit in actually hearing them out, because eventually you come to the conclusion that we're all just saying the same thing. Some of us are just more uptight about the way we're saying it than others.
Or how it's executed.
Right. Or how it's executed. So, like, it's... You obviously don't want to... You obviously don't want to say it's arbitrary, especially to their face, because that's not exactly what you're saying. But it's... In a way, it's a way of being able to kind of digest everything that they're telling you, and even though they have such a strict diet of it, you're able to kind of allow that to kind of wash over you and then go, okay, well, I see your point, but you know, you can kind of move past it if you feel the need to, you know. So
you have to be present to do that, because if you're immediately thinking of what's the next thing I respond with or how do I counter that, you're missing the whole
Well,
point.
yeah, if
You've already moved yourself, completely out of the moment.
moving back to like if you're just gonna sit in the now, whatever definition that is, to your definition and whoever you're talking to. It's trying to have that interface with each other enough so that you can both get what the other person is actually saying, as opposed to all the nuance that they're trying to throw in there with it.
Nuance of self-identification, maybe. Like, this is how I see myself, so I have to be rigid in this. The social psychology piece of, like, the second we identify ourselves with a group, we create, like, group mentality, in-group and out-group. And this, like, process of, okay, I can make excuses for the people in my group because I think like them. But, like, the people in the out-group, I can't make excuses for them. They're just stupid, right? Like, they just don't get it. They're just not bright. And at the same time, the more we latch on to an idea and we start shifting into, like, this is the paradigm, this is the way I'm going to think, the more we actually start getting rid of our own personal values to enmesh in the group that we identify with. And so that's, like, the constant problem is, like, in one sense you could unravel, but now you're just re-raveling.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was one of the things we talked about too, is like our egos kind of just like the yarn, but unwinding your ego is just like unwinding a yarn ball. And once it's all unwound, it's just like winding itself back up on the floor, and it's like that never goes away. I think something also that's like kind of ridiculously prevalent in society today is us versus them, right? That's such a, and Dustin, you even mentioned, if you follow this thread all the way down, right, you realize everybody's just you. Like you're the same person as everybody else is. And so, and I don't mean person as in a separate person. I mean, you're not separate. I mean, that means that the thing hearing me talk right now is the same thing that's talking. That means we're both the same thing, right? And when that leads back to that, and it clearly leads back to that whole us versus them thing collapses, because there's no us and there's no them. There's just you. And like hiding that is part of sort of the goal of the us versus them argument, One of my favorite things that I love seeing conspiracy theorists post about, right, is, oh, you just wait until they get what's coming to them. And I sit there and I go, who's they? Like, who is it that is they? Like, why don't you just say their names? Well, there's a lot of them that just don't want to be known about, and they don't. And so that's going to get blown open soon. Everybody's going to know their names. Oh yeah, they, right? They're and them, right? Yeah, them and they is the boogeyman, right? It's a word you can use that's not you.
Like you said, it's very prevalent, appallingly prevalent, and appallingly vitriol. It's, we're so vile to one another, and I'm guilty.
Division.
I'm guilty of it myself. I have a very strong propensity for when I get anxious or stressed out, my immediate go-to has always been fuck the rest of the world. I hope everybody dies. Leave me the fuck alone, right? And you find yourself in these ruts or these deep kind of pits of just misanthropy and self-loathing, and then eventually you kind of, it's just happened recently for me where I've been able to pull myself back out of that very, very subtly, to kind of open myself back up to kind of go like, all this shit that we're trying to do that's divisive and all us against them, whittling it back down to what you said and what we've talked about millions of times before. It really is you finding yourself down at the very bottom of that, at the very pit of every disagreement that you're having with somebody, is you essentially having a disagreement with yourself, because all of this stuff is, yeah, we can say, tear down the tyranny and everything like that, or support the tyranny, whatever it may be. It's still all affecting you. You battling against somebody else is always going to be affecting yourself, and if it's easy when you don't have any parallels to and I'm kind of rambling on, I apologize, this has a point. When you don't have any, you aren't aware of any of the parallels between you, it's much easier to point fingers and to demonize. But I listened to a talk from a guy named Dakota Meyer, who is a Medal of Honor recipient. And, he did a lot of, he was a Marine, he did a lot of really crazy shit and, killed a lot of people. But he was very real about the implications of what he was doing, about saying, look, they believed everything they believed just as much as I believe everything I believe. They didn't think they were doing just as much as I think I'm fighting for the better good. They're doing the exact same thing. And
exactly. Yeah.
In that moment, it's not a perfect metaphor, because in that moment it really is kind of you or them. But if you're consciously aware of that other person, their motivations, and the reality of, like, this other person has the capacity to feel scared, to feel anxious, to feel hopeful, to feel love, all these different things. When you're more aware of that, it makes it much easier to kind of not be misanthropic, not hate the rest of humanity. But we have a climate today that's very geared towards shutting all of those avenues off so that you can't pay attention to them. So
yeah, I think compassion, man, right? It's about like building compassion for someone else, and like being able to go, my neighbor keeps like fucking coming home at like 4:00 in the morning, and it's pissing me off, right? And like I can hear him slam his door and like blah 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 blah, and like instead of thinking about like the fact that your neighbor is coming home at 4:00 in the morning because that's the only time he can work to support his family. And then like he slams his door because your fucking windows are too thin, right? Like, and you can hear him shut his door because your fucking windows are too thin, right? And you're getting irritated with your neighbor instead of actually like taking in what it would be like to be your neighbor for a minute.
Well, it's because it's really, really easy, and I don't know exactly where this comes from, but it's much easier to shirk all of that accountability, and this is a particular gripe for me as a parent, because it's there's I don't know if you've seen those billboards, the Cosmopolitan contains porn, Cosmo hurts kids.
Yeah, I have seen those. Ridiculous.
It's besides the fact that it's totally ridiculous, it's also we have a cult of personality that it's everybody else's problem to take care of you. It's everybody else's problem to raise your kid. If you don't like what Cosmo has, why the hell are you letting your kid?
Yeah, why is it in your house for your children to be able to read?
If you're offended by the fact that it's in a slot at the grocery store, how about actually take initiative as a parent and accountability and say, either A, I'm going to explain this in a way that's proper so my child understands, or I'm going to distract them with something else if it really bothers me that much. It's not up to everybody else to raise your child, same as it's not up to everybody else to be on the lookout for you. It should be an interchange between all of us, that we're all kind of looking out for each other. But to kind of expect that of somebody else is, I think, takes your own personality out of the equation a little too much. Where is our waiter?
No, that was great. I was thinking like the devil's advocate side of like, since we're talking about compassion, keeping that same loop, like going into the neuroscience of free will. Like, there's a really fascinating book, Sam Harris, Free Will, that's, he's a neuroscientist and a philosopher, and he discusses, do we really have free will or not?
I would argue we don't.
Yeah, and he actually argues that too. And, so like basic chopped down condensed version, you grow up in a certain culture, in a certain religion, with a certain language and certain paradigms and certain value systems and morals, and all of those things structure the way you see the world. And so there are certain things that just never present in your mind as an option because you've never learned to make them one. And I think the best way to teach that to a person is like, have you ever had that moment where like someone said something to you a million times the same way, and then one day it's just like, oh my God, I get what you're saying. And like the light bulb comes on, like me in martial arts, they kept telling me 2.5 years, telling me the same move over and over and over again, same exact language. And then one day I was like, how did I miss that? But like, I didn't have anything built up in that paradigm to understand what they were saying. And so like that sense of free will, like I wouldn't have had the opportunity 2 years previous to that to understand that, because I don't have free will. And so on some level, right, like looking at our culture and the way things are structured here and how uptight and private people are and how much sex is stigmatized and like considered inhuman or like maybe animalistic, they don't have that free will, that capacity to kind of sit and say like those things, because they haven't been taught that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree completely, because that's like one of the same exact things that I'm always talking about with nothing, right? When I say nothing, I mean something vastly different than what most people think. But one day, it's gonna click, and I've seen it happen with people, and it's one of my favorite things to see happen, because all of a sudden we'll be talking, we'll be having this really deep conversation, right? And I'll say just one little something. And the person will just like look at me like, and then they'll just fucking start laughing, right? And it's like, yes, like that's it. You've got it, But yeah, like free will is like, I found this little question. I'm gonna have a question for you, and it pertains to free will. And let's see how the response is to this. So, on a moment of your choosing, okay, raise your arm. Go ahead, anytime. A moment of your choosing, raise your arm.
You get two people who absolutely refuse.
Well, I'm more or less thinking the therapist, there's that pressure building, which is all the more reason to sit in the discomfort and not.
It's just a fun little experiment. I did it. I raised my arm when I first read this thing. I was like, okay, like there we go. So on a moment of your choosing, raise your arm. Good, right? Now try it again, okay? But focusing that it's really your decision when to move it. Okay? Your decision. Not your thoughts telling you to do it, but your decision.
But that's hard because your head thinks about it before you decide, which means you never have free will. Because your thoughts aren't you. Your thoughts aren't you.
So where's your free will?
There is none.
It's frustrating. It's really frustrating because like, yeah. Well, one of the greatest things is to recognize that your thoughts aren't even you. If your thoughts were you, who'd be hearing them?
Yeah. Well, I think the perfect example of this is The Untethered Soul. I've read this book a few times now. I picked it up again last year.
You showed me that book, and I've read it. I've read it like 3 times now. I showed Jordan that book. Those of you who don't know, also Jordan and Dustin are in a band together. Yeah. Berlin Breaks. Go check them out. Quick little name drop. But yeah, no, I lent him The Untethered Soul, and he ate it up in like I think a day and a half. Like he loves it. Oh, good. So good.
So I remember like reading this book, right? And the first time, reading it, being like, oh, like this part of it's like really deep or in depth. Like I think the first time I read it, I was really caught on the whole like who am I thing, right? And like really. So this is my
best question you can ask.
Third time around, I'm in this Japanese spa my husband's bought for me to go to for my birthday. And I'm reading that section that's talking about like if you're watching a movie and you have the ability to share the character's thoughts, at what point do you lose yourself and stop being aware of yourself? Like the more senses we engage, the less aware we are. And all of a sudden, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. It was like I just zoomed way the fuck out, and I was watching myself, which is the craziest thing. And it's like the biggest paradigm shift, but I always thought it was going to be like, inspiring moment. And it's not. It's like those pictures you look at where like you see one thing, and if you stare at it long enough, you can see the other.
Like a magic eye. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a great
like this like really interesting, like, whoa. And so like now, like where I catch myself is when I get caught up or overwhelmed in emotion or something, pulling out and being like, wait, my thoughts aren't facts. That's not me. Like, who's saying those things? Where are those things coming from? And like really trying to zoom out that lens and like come to that point of consciousness, right? Like at the end of the day, that's what we are, is we're consciousness. Like that's what hit me. Like I am consciousness, and that's the end of it. That's who I am, or what I am, or what is that. That's hard to define.
That's why I like calling it nothing. That's because it's like, well, there's not really anything you can call it.
And the second it's the Buddhist quote, like the second you like define like you know more about who you are by letting go of defining it. The more you define it, the harder it is to kind of like conceptualize, if that makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's absolutely the case. It's like why it's the secret hidden in plain sight, right? Like it's a secret that as soon as you talk about it, it's not really the secret anymore. So like, don't worry, it's untouched. And it's like, it's amazing. That's such a genius, like little facet to this thing, right? Like, wow, what a great hiding spot. Like, we talked about this last episode, which isn't up yet, but it will be by the time this one's up, as the flashlight, right? The flashlight trying to find itself in a dark room. It's like it can't find itself because it's what it's looking for, and it can only see through its own light. And so it's impossible to see itself. And that's like such a great analogy for like what you are. Like when you said you witnessed yourself witnessing stuff, it's like
watching yourself watching yourself. What the fuck is happening?
It's crazy. And and you sound crazy. Like I've talked about the same exact thing, and you sound crazy to people. But that's another great thing about it. It's like it knows where to hide. It knows how to hide well. Oh. These guys are like catching on to it. Make them sound crazy. We'll make them sound crazy. And it's just, I think it's so wonderful though. It's warms my heart to talk about, because like talking to other people and knowing that you're really just talking to you, that you're not really talking to other people, you're just talking to yourself. Right, in a different way, in a different filter, with some different glasses, that's cool, and I think it creates, it makes it easier. Like you were saying, Dustin, makes it easier to create compassion for someone, especially like if you realize that everybody's you, like why would you be bad to you?
Yeah.
Well, there's a story. My Hindu friends are gonna hate me because I'm gonna totally forget the name of the particular god, but or deity. It starts with a P and has a lot of syllables, so I'm gonna just leave it at that.
Fair. That's all right.
It's the story of the all supreme and all knowing deity that in order to understand himself better and in order to humor himself, essentially that's what it comes down to, is humor, and to better see himself, he tears himself into billions of pieces so that each piece can interact with each other. And all these pieces, while separate, are all interacting with themselves, this greater being as it is. So, and that's something that, for me anyways, that concept has gone a long way of kind of pulling that misanthropy out of me and kind of going, okay, well, every person that I'm interacting with, and you're interacting with another facet of yourself. You can put your own face on anybody else. And you can put your own face on, if you give yourself the time to kind of consider what somebody else's experiences are and what somebody else's experiences have been. And then you can ask yourself, how would I myself, at least this self, would have reacted to that experience? What would I have done? What would I have done differently? What would I have done the same? And then you kind of have to ask yourself, would I have done any of that? And so all of these questions swirling around eventually kind of come back to you're just interacting with another part of who you are. This other, whether this person is somebody you totally adore or somebody you totally hate, they're all, the reason that you adore them is because of something that you either have or want to have as part of yourself. And the reason that you hate this other person over here is because either they stand for something so adverse to what you hold as a value, or
more often than not, you relate in the
there's
same way.
something,
they have something about them you don't want to see in you.
There's something about them that you're terrified of in yourself. And so through all of that mess, it really just comes back to this being that's torn himself into a billion pieces, just as a way to try and understand himself more. And you can think of that literally in terms of like you and I and her are all the same, literally, or you can think of it as allegory of, well, I need to cut everybody some slack here because we're all doing the exact same thing. You know, we're all trying to get to the same point in our existence, basically.
Yeah, I like.
Our waiter?
I like that.
You're not saying anything awkward. I don't know why you think you do.
No, you're good, man. You're good. You're just not used to being on camera and a podcast. So no worries. You're good, man. Something that one analogy that I really love to use for sort of the whole like you are everything and like you are me and I'm you and all that is like looking at a movie screen, right? and going, okay, there's like, if we look at the screen right now, like the screen that you guys at home are looking at, and the screen that you guys are there are looking at, the screen I'm looking at, right? There's this sort of whole picture that's happening. And there's Dustin, and there's Takina, and there's Daniel, right? And here we are, and everybody's seeing that. And there's a little doggy. And, you know, there's this story happening, right? And if you pay attention, that's all concept. That's like stitched together concept. Because in reality, what we're looking at is a clear piece of plastic with colored pixels underneath it. Like, that's the reality of the situation, right? The reality of the situation. And this still isn't even really the reality of the situation. But if we want to go in scientific terms, which I would say probably 75+% of people out there would agree with, right? We're all atoms. Like, everything around you right now is atoms. So which one's you? Like, obviously none of them. Like, because like if a specific selection of them was me, well, that disappeared 6 years ago, 7 years ago, when I like fully changed out all my atoms already. And that happens every 7 years. That's a fact. Go look it up. Every 7 years, every atom in your body's a different one. Like, every one of them, which means from the time you started until now, you've actually become numerous different bodies. But we like to say, well, I'm me. Well, what's that mean? That doesn't mean anything. You're a bunch of atoms. So you're not this. That can't possibly be what the me is that you're talking about, right? And you say, well, I'm me. Well, who's I? Right? That's the question. Who's that thing saying I am me? Because that is you. The thing saying I is you. The thing claiming me is not. And it's all just one thing. Just like the screen is one screen, right? There's one screen that has all three of us up here. But really, it's just one screen. But there's three of us up here. It's the same kind of primordial soup that we sort of live in, There's an idea there's we, because we all agree there's a we. I'm talking to you two as though there's really you two there. You guys are talking back to me as though there's really a me here. It's interesting. None of it's true.
It ties back into like what you say though, that like the Hindus believed that like everything is God, right? Like that idea that like everything is God. The animals, the plants, the earth, the people.
The space between the things, everything.
Yeah. And like as I conceptualize that, I'm thinking of this style of therapy that we use a lot in trauma that I see has some of the most profound benefits for all my clients, and it's called internal family systems. And this whole method of therapy is breaking the construct that there is one you, but you are many yous. You have many parts that show up in different ways in different situations, and you have parts that you don't want to see. Carl Jung would call those the shadow self. This form of therapy calls them exiles, right? Like, I don't want to deal with you. And, you know, Jung, I love shadow work a lot. He would argue that, like, the more you deny those parts of you that you don't want to accept or see, the more they're going to come out in those extreme ways that are hurtful to you and other people, right? And
just to interject, Eckhart Tolle talks about those two. He calls them pain bodies.
Okay.
And yeah, it's wonderful. I love that. Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're fine. That concept, like that idea is very beautiful, right? And it ties into like the whole Hindu Buddhist belief of like, where Westerners have got it wrong is we do this to be better for us. But like where Easterners come from is we do this to be better for other people. Yeah, right? Yeah, exactly. So that concept of like, well, you have a bunch of different yous. And the most fascinating thing I see is like every time I structure this, I can have a client coming in like legitimately all kinds of situations I don't need to throw out there that people don't want to hear about because it'd be distressing to think about. And
real quick for the listeners, what is it you do?
I am a trauma therapist, so I specialize in complex trauma, PTSD, and I'm now a trauma-informed yoga teacher as well.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah. So in this form of therapy, someone comes in and they're fighting this part of them. They don't want to deal with it or see it or whatever. And we make this space to like actually pull it out and extrapolate it and sit it on the couch next to you and talk about how old it is. And like, what is this part like? What personality does it have? What is its job? How does it feel about doing its job? What does it need from you to do its job better? And every time I see someone go from being in this place of like, oh, I hate this part and I'm so mad at it, to like break down crying, like, holy shit, this part's just trying to protect me. And like, I need to learn to interact with it different. And it's kind of funny to conceptualize that in the atoms thing of like, well, how many of these other people around us that we disagree with, tying back into the main theme of our conversation, are just thinking they're doing the best to protect us, the best to protect themselves. And we're just coming at it from different ways.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's, I have a firm belief in cellular memory too. So I actually believe that like not only are the atoms that make you up like, you know, completely different than when you were a child, but they're also reused from, you know, billions of years ago. Who knows? You know, I don't know what atoms that this body's currently using have already sort of been a part of this whole thing. You know, and gone through experiences and like had ridiculous things happen. I think that's honestly, I think that's sort of what past life regressions are, is sort of a tapping in almost to cellular memory, you know, and people are able to sort of tap into this energetic recording almost. My buddy Paul, you guys know Paul, he has this really awesome theory about ghosts and like what ghosts are. And what his theory is that ghosts are essentially like let's say in this studio, right? I spend a lot of time in this studio and I sit in that chair back there and it creaks, right? And so I'm sitting and I just lean back and it goes creak, right? So let's say 20 years from now, right? Somebody has a house built here instead of my studio. They tore the place down. They built a house. This is their bedroom now, okay? Every once in a while, because I work at all hours of the night. I mean, I'll be out here at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, like just working on music or working on whatever, you know, editing, filming, whatever. I do all sorts of stuff. And, you know, I would dare say that during their sleep one night, you know, they'll hear a creak 20 years from now, and they'll go, what the hell was that? Because they don't have a chair in their room. They're like, what was that noise? And it's just energy sort of re-releasing itself, just like an earthquake. We've experienced earthquakes recently. That's been fun. What happens after an initial earthquake? Aftershocks. A bunch of them, right? Because everything goes and then settles, right? Once that first move happens and it goes, okay, that was a big one. Now it's time to like rest everybody else down. And when that happens, you know, obviously we're like, we gotta deal with the shakes of it. But that's, I think he's dead on. I think that's what ghosts are. Sort of a replaying of this energy that just wasn't quite done being fully let out, you know. And that's why people will experience, you know, paranormal activity in places where there was a murder, or where, you know, somebody disappeared, or where there was just like a horrible accident, or, you know, an Indian burial ground, or whatever. There's just these ridiculous amounts of energy that still need to come out of those areas, and they can only do it from the sort of memory that they have. And so it creates sort of this I don't want to say reimagining, because I almost want to say it's a replay, because it's sort of just like the same thing, not reoccurring, but sort of finishing out its final thoughts. You know what I mean?
Well, and you can you can even drag that into the more less esoteric and more tangible of historic trauma. Yeah. You have you know, this. It's something horrible can happen to somebody 70 years ago, and that trauma is going to be passed down, whether it's through you know, just the way our interactions between each of our family members just kind of travel down the line, or it may be, like you were saying, kind of cellular memory at that point. And you can go even further with that. Like, how does a baby just automatically know how to suckle at the breast when it's born?
Right. There's just this instinctual, like, nature kind of like understanding of like something that shouldn't be understood. Like my dog, I watch my dogs all the time, and they do stuff like my dog. I remember when she was 2 months old, right? She like grabbed a bone and just like started like chewing on it, like she knew what she knew exactly what to do with her paw, like she knew every little like piece of what to do, and I didn't teach her. I don't know how to do that, But like she knew how to do it. She knows how to like go to the bathroom outside and like circle the spot and like do the circle thing to like lay down right and like all that stuff. And I didn't teach her any of it. And she was taken from her mother a little early, I think, too. So that's just fascinating that she just knows.
It's the same as teaching a kid how to walk. Like,
I bet your son's instinct is to just walk. Like he's probably already trying to do it without you even telling him.
Long past trying.
Well, you get what I mean though. Like when it was that time.
It's just you can be kind of pompous and say like, oh yeah, I taught him to walk, but in all reality, you as a parent, you can see that instinct's already there. They already know what's happening. Even though they're watching you do that said thing, you're not really teaching them how to do it because they're already set up for it, but their bodies are already trying to do that in the first place. Movement is already part of the game that they're playing, right? So when you speak of things that like you were saying, you're totally different now than you were as a baby on a cellular level. And I'll figure out the point I was trying to make when you come back to me a little later on.
Well, I'd love to like tie into you a little bit, like going back to this piece you guys are playing off of and what Dustin was saying, like throwing the science out there. We actually have like scientific evidence that shows that trauma literally rewires your like genetic code. And that genetic coding gets passed on to generations. And so it's generational trauma is not just something we're seeing because you live in a home where a parent experienced it and you're encountering it. We can see those same effects when someone's removed from that home and not grown up in that environment or around those people at all. And like a really simple, basic example of this is they take a horse, and this is legit, like horse gets bit by a snake, freaks out, later has babies. Remove the babies from the horse, right? The second they're born, horse does not take care of those babies. The children of those babies' children, when they are born, scientists exposed to horses, and the horses are exposed to snakes, and their immediate reaction is freak out. They don't know why, they don't know where it's coming from, but it's literally been coded in that this is dangerous, that this is something that will hurt you, right? And we see that same thing like OCD. There's a big theory out there on OCD that like it stems from things like the Great Depression, where people had to learn to like hoard and think about every scenario to get through. And so over time that gets passed on as a survival mechanism.
With this COVID stuff, how many people do you think are going to be like hypochondriacs in another 30 years?
Well, OCD is hypochondria, actually. That's one part of it.
Sure. No, for sure. I had something I was going to say, but I forgot. It happens. Yeah, I don't remember what I was going to say. I do remember earlier. I don't want to like say the word out loud just because I don't want to deal with any lawsuits. But there's another organization that also sort of, I would say, kind of does the same sort of stuff, but they call it the same thing the IRS does to you when you're in trouble. Um, I don't want to talk too much about it on the podcast just because their lawyers are ruthless.
I mean, I'm wondering if I'm suspecting.
Pretty sure you can probably figure out who I'm talking about. Um, I don't know when the new Mission Impossible is supposed to come out, but you know,
Yeah,
I'm
okay, I think
sure
we're on the same
I'm
page.
sure you can sure you can find out on maybe their website. No, but I've looked I would be oh I'm a big time no person to talk to if you're part of that religion because I've done a lot of research into that. And to be honest, it's not completely insane. Like the first couple books and courses totally worth like checking out and looking into. After that, maybe not so much. It's a little more of a money grab, I think. But anyways, we'll move on from that topic. But real quick, so I don't know if I've ever asked you this. Either one of you, I'd love to know. Were either one of you brought up religious?
Um, Not particularly. So my parents were actually raised in different religions. My father was raised Catholic and my mother was raised Mormon. I now Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I believe that's the appropriate terminology.
Yes, I believe that is correct. And good on you for being inclusive. Like
I'm
for real. I'm not being sarcastic. Like for real because like regardless of, anybody's views on whatever, like every religion has their right to be what however they want to be, you know what I mean? Like as long as they're not hurting people, which that's a different topic, but
on
yeah.
it.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that is the correct terminology.
So my parents kind of, I actually really respect their approach a lot. That they kind of stood back and said, like, we're not gonna make you choose. Like, we want you to explore and see what works best for you. And so I went to like
That's
Christian churches and Catholic churches and Church of Jesus Christ of Latter Day Saints and um, all sorts of things. The irony was when I decided I wasn't sure I believed. Right, like my mom had made me this Jesus statue, and I put it in the closet, and there was this big confrontation about why I was hiding him, and I told her I wasn't sure if I believed. That wasn't okay. So it was like I could choose anything, but I couldn't choose not to believe.
as long as you chose one of these things.
Yes. So that was like a really interesting thing, but they really did like let me explore or find people to allow me to go with. They'd let me go every day. They let me participate. Like at one point, I was baptized in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter Day Saints, and they were just fully supportive wherever I went and bounced around. Bounced to Buddhism and all kinds of stuff.
I was gonna say, like, so were they pretty strict about it being Christian, or like, did they let you explore other religions?
No, I could really go anywhere but atheism, right? So I just started
Okay.
making the joke that I'm from the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. and
Whoops.
and the reality for me is like I always wanted to believe. I really did, but I just like couldn't get there. And I actually like always had this like for probably the first 20 years of my life, maybe 25 years of my life, I had this like really internal battle with like, why can't I believe? I really want to believe in something. And eventually it just shifted into like more of a spiritual thing of like, okay, I can believe in this. Like I can believe in, like there being something bigger than us, there being a universe, there being energy. Like you walk in a room and you don't have to witness a fight to feel tension you can cut with a knife. That's real. And like I can believe in these things, and maybe I don't believe in this like conceptual biblical idea of like who is God and what does God believe. But I actually think religion's really beautiful. I'm kind of a little obsessed with like learning about them. I actually in college had a professor who was so incredible about educating on different religions, I spent a period of my time considering actually becoming a religious studies.
Oh, wow.
Because I loved so much about like the way they conceptualized things and the different ways they looked at things, and it was really fascinating.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I like that a lot. What about you, Dustin?
I think so. When I was really, really young, before my mom moved us here to Salt Lake, I believe we were. I grew up, or I didn't grow up. I was born in a really, really, really small town in Colorado, and the only real church they had there was a Presbyterian church. And it was more Catholic influenced. We did Palm Sunday, we did the wine and bread thing, and then when we moved to Utah, we obviously followed, more the Mormon deal, which is super awkward for me, because of many reasons. They frown upon you drawing pictures of Satan in church, I've found.
Is that a no-no? Are they not chill with that? Oh, man, you are free to be whoever you want to be, as long as you're not that person.
Yeah. Yeah. My mom tried a bunch of different ideas. I want to say, I don't want to necessarily say she tried a bunch of different religions, but she tried a bunch of different ideas anyway. And
about like one like religion, or just about like belief in general.
Belief in general. It's like her.
Okay.
Her path as far as her faith and or belief has kind of been the same as mine in a way. It's just been much more drawn out than mine has. I was very sporadic and very kind of all over the place. There was my parents really gave me the freedom to just kind of figure things out. And figure things out by whatever means necessary, really. They kind of just said, it's your thing, figure it out. So by way, I've done everything from setting myself up so that I could be a Catholic priest to being heavily entrenched in the more ritualistic, satanic type of stuff. Like I've done it all just to gain some sort of understanding. You know what I mean? But I was given full reign to do that. So as far as being raised early on, it was much more of a very Christian structure, but at a certain point that structure kind of disappeared and it was no holds barred. So
okay, all right, cool. That's really cool. I actually have a friend.
How about yourself? I don't think
Yeah, no, for sure. I was just gonna say real quick, I actually have another friend who I'd love to have on the podcast. You guys know Alex. With the beard.
Oh, that. Yeah.
You know Alex.
that asshole owes me a haircut. I hope he's watching.
Anyways, he studies the Satanic Bible and like the writings of Anton LaVey, and so I would love to have him. Maybe you two both would be fun to have on that episode.
Yeah, let me know.
That would be kind of fun to do. But yeah, so me, I know I'm sort of asking sort of the cardinal sin question, right? Like, what's your religion?
It's only a sin if you make
just
it
to be
one.
clear, I'm not asking what current religion is. I was just curious what you sort of were raised. Although I am curious what your current religion is, if you have one, and if you don't mind, divulging it at all. But
Go ahead.
I guess I ascribe to Buddhism, which is more like, I would not consider that religious. I'd consider that more spiritual, more like a way to hack your mind, and less
I would agree with that. Yeah.
a way to salvation, like a different kind of salvation, So
Yeah. Well, it's like the guidebook, right? Like there's the characters you can play, and then there's sort of like the how-to, right? And the how-to is sort of Zen Buddhism, and I love what Buddhism is. It a specific Buddhism you follow or you study, or just kind of Buddhism in general?
I've kind of divulged into a lot of them, and there are many things about each of them I love. And actually, the place we go for Sangha and stuff now is kind of like a lay-led enmeshment of different types, taking the messages and bringing them together rather than being exclusive.
I would adore to go with you guys.
Please do. We'd love to take you. It's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be wonderful. I'd love it. What about you, Dustin? Would you say that you have a religion, or?
I'm getting into that. I'm really getting into that Amish thing.
I got so many questions then, man, because those guys are so secretive.
I am getting awesome at fireplaces. It is great.
He's neglecting the no electricity.
Yeah, no.
Ironically, he's on Zoom. He doesn't know what this technology is.
Yeah, what is this? What is all this magic in front of me?
I'm totally confused, Ghost Dan. I don't know. I have a very my relationship with a religion is very on again, off again. It's like the worst girlfriend I've ever had.
Wow, that was beautiful.
I was gonna say that's pretty good. That's probably one of the best analogies for religion that I've ever heard, actually, because, oh man,
I fight myself so often because I fight those waves of going from loving the human race to absolutely disdaining it. You know what I mean? And
right.
It's the same thing with religion for me. Organized religion itself, I've always had a very cantankerous relationship with, because I have real problem with authority. And somebody I really don't appreciate somebody telling me how to do something. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I've always been in love with... Well, it's twofold there, because in one sense, I've always very much been in love with I've always been really in love with worship and the way people worship, and how kind of esoteric and beautiful that can be.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like the ritualistic nature of sort of worship and just sort of how that all is very beautiful. Yeah, I will agree with that.
And, as much shit as I give, Christianity and Catholicism and stuff, there's so much beauty behind that. And especially like Hinduism especially, yeah. The level of devotion is so beautiful. You know what I mean? I'm really drawn to that. And also I feel like in a lot of senses my life in particular requires some of that, or needs some of it at times, because I can be such a toxic person at times.
No.
I kind of need rituals and traditions and that esoteric type of thing for me to feel a part of what's in front of me. Like I spent so much time as a not just an atheist but a devout anti-theist that when I finally hit a point where it was all opened up to me in my own personal thinking and my own personal feelings that there is something greater, that there is something that I am a part of that's something bigger. It was scary and paradigm shifting, but now as of kind of reaching my 30s and everything like that, and kind of leaving that more sporadic and bouncy part of my life and reaching more of a level ground, I've come to I try to stay away from any labelization of any kind because it really makes me feel uncomfortable. Buddhism is something that's always been very near and dear to me. Just the way that the philosophy is. Hinduism and its rituals is also something that's been very helpful to me. But as far as like an actual faith that I'm following and religion, I'm a deist, I guess, in the vaguest terms that I can give you.
That's all right. That's all right. No worries. That's great. So I won't leave this without me answering that question. Just so you guys know, I haven't forgotten, you know. So, I guess to tell you how I was raised, I got to start with my grandma. So my grandma was raised Catholic. My mother was raised obviously by my grandmother, but my mom, I don't think my mom would call herself Catholic. She might, just because sort of conditioning tells her she should. But she was never baptized anything, and she would call herself Christian, period. Not a specific type of Christian, just Christian. She believes in God, she believes in Jesus, and, you know, she believes in all the stuff that comes along with Christianity, right? Which is a lot. So I grew up sort of in a Christian upbringing. However, I don't want to say that I was like raised as a Christian, because my mom was very much like your parents. She did not, and my dad, you know, they were very open to sort of what I wanted to know. You know, if I had questions about anything, they said, you know, if you ever want to go to church with your friends, you know, and you want to go check that out, that's totally fine. You know, your grandma goes to church, you can go to church with her. I did a couple times, and it was a odd, you know, situation. I didn't find myself loving it. I loved the artwork there. I loved the stained glass. I remember being in, like, because I grew up in Heber, Utah, which is this tiny little tiny town, and there's this little cathedral there called the St. Lawrence Cathedral. Right, it's the St. Lawrence Catholic Church, and it's a gorgeous, like, it's like red stone, beautiful church, and old, really old church. I'm not sure how old, but I know it's not super new. And if it is, they did a damn good job of making it look old, because I remember going into that thing and just being like, wow. And that's one of the reasons I agree completely with you about their like ritualisticness of sort of organized religions, and like especially Catholicism. Like Catholicism is like almost they do it to a T. You know, they're like, let's make it as extravagant and big as possible. You know, like look at the Pope speak. Like just look at just the Pope speaking, and you'll see the kind of, you know, red carpet they roll out. And it's impressive. And I remember being there and being like, wow, this is amazing. And like listening that there was this guy talking up there, and just being more like, this is all so cool, like not listening at all to what the guy was saying. But like I said, my mom, my mom basically raised me. I mean, when I was 10, my dad, they split up. And so my mom was basically the person who like raised me the most. And she always let me choose, she never ever shoved anything in my face, including God, which, her being raised Christian was really cool to like have a mom who was like, I mean, if you're interested, let's learn about God together. That's cool. Let's do that. But if not, that's all good too. And I remember reading the Bible with her, and we read Genesis. If you've ever read Genesis, it's basically a big list of names. Like that's basically all Genesis is. Obviously, that's. Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm sure I'm gonna get like flack from that because that's not true. Obviously, there's a lot to that story, and it's not just names, but you get the joke. If you've read the Bible, you get the joke. So, I mean, there's 30 or 40 pages literally of just name after name after name, and after like we hit that and we went, what is this? Like, is this for real? Like, is this a real thing? And like. We got through a couple books and we ended up not finishing it, which I found a little interesting, right? Like, here's my mom who adores Christianity and the Bible, but she's struggling to get through this thing too. Like, okay, so I'm not wrong in feeling like this is a struggle. Like, this isn't just easy peasy lemon squeezy, This is rough to get through. Like, what? Like, she's even having a hard time. And that sort of made me go, okay, like, hold on. Does my mom know? Or like, does she think she knows? And like, that was the first time that my brain went, okay, I gotta check some other stuff out. I sort of dropped I became, at that point, I would call myself agnostic. I was agnostic. I said, I know there's something that's not this, right? Like there's not just this body and this body is going to die and that's that. It's like, I know that's not the case. Like in the deepest pit of my like soul and being, I know that's not the case. I said, so what the hell is the case, right? And I went, well, I don't know. And so when people would ask me that question, I'd always say, I'm agnostic. Now, I would say I don't claim a religion. That would be my claim. I'm not religious, including atheism. Which, yes, atheists, I hate to break it to you, but atheism is a religion as well. Science is a religion as well, and I'm going to get hate for that, but it is what it is. It's the truth. Belief systems are religions. That's just sort of how that works. There's sort of something that comes along with needing to write it down, right? And that's where religions came from, is needing to write it down. But I would have called myself agnostic. Now I would say I'm not religious. I'm spiritual, and that's ruffled some feathers. But I've had people rope me in, even though I say I'm spiritual. I'm not religious. I don't follow a specific religion. So when I get called a religious zealot or something like that, it makes me laugh a little bit because, okay, what religion am I being, zealous about? Because I don't really have one. I suppose if I had to put a label to it, and I sort of talked about this last episode as well, I would say that my religion is now. It's the present moment, right? It's consciousness. Actually, would probably be closer. Not even now. Consciousness would probably be what I would call my religion, because consciousness envelops now. That's like, consciousness is sort of it. That's the truth of it all, in my opinion. That's God. That's the thing everybody's looking for. That's Buddha. That's all of it. That is the thing everybody's searching for. And so why not be the thing that you worship, right? Like, obviously, it's like, so I see consciousness sort of as my religion. And one of my favorite parts about my religion is there's no understanding it. So I'm never done, you know? I'm never like, okay, guys, I'm good. We'll see you guys later. I'm out. Like, that's not going to happen, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? That's not going to happen, though, because, like, it doesn't. What was that? I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry.
That would have been so awesome if we did end there. We just like got up and walked off.
Cut the episode right there. Everybody's like, did they end it just now? Really?
I just got robbed. I have no conclusion, and that is the point.
Right? We should end it all abruptly.
Because you always have to come back to it. It's never a one-time thing.
It's true. But yeah, it's
You kind of want to end it on that note.
I kind of do. I kind of want to just end it all quick. Maybe we still can. We still can. We can make this happen. We can make this happen. No, I appreciate the hell out of you guys being on here. Thank you so much. Like, for real, this has been so awesome. It's been enlightening for me as well. I really appreciate your time. And I appreciate you guys, like, taking the time to answer some questions that, you know, a lot of people would just be like, next question. You know what I mean? Like, so thank you for being open enough to share it with not only me, but, you know, everybody else here. It's a courageous kind of thing to be able to share, you know, intimate parts of your life with people, for the betterment of them, right? Like, so that's the whole point of this podcast. Like, I'm not doing this podcast for me. I'm not doing this podcast for, you know, for like fun. I'm doing this because I really, really think there's benefit in talking about this stuff. You know, and this stuff is literally nothing, you know, and that's sort of the silly paradox of this entire podcast, is that nothing isn't what you think it is, you know, and like, let's talk about what it is, you know, because there's something magical to it. And until you discover nothing, I suppose, you won't see the magic of it. But once you do, once it happens, like and it's not even, the worst part about this is it's like I'm explaining, I don't even like saying, like, when I talk to people about like my first time like recognizing this whole thing, I don't like saying it was an experience, right? Because like what happened was all experience stopped completely. It went, well, you're not experiencing things anymore. And I went, holy fucking shit. Like, that's right. That's right. Holy shit. Like, I'm experiencing Daniel because I wanted to experience shit. And I said, and if I'm not Daniel, I'm not experiencing shit. And as odd as that is to say, that's like, that's it. That's the thing. That's the thing you want, is to sort of go, oh, that's right. I'm not actually experiencing anything. And once you experience the experience of non-experience, your whole paradigm of the entire world and how it all works gets completely shattered. And it all goes away, and you are left with this whole new thing. Like I said it again, I'll mention again this episode because I think it's worth mentioning. You know, reaching enlightenment is like finishing the tutorial level of a video game. You're like, you've finished, congrats, you've become enlightened. Now we start the game. And I think a lot of people misconstrue like enlightenment. I put quotes around enlightenment because like once enlightenment sort of happens, you recognize that enlightenment isn't real. So I put quotes around it because it's just sort of supposed to get you to a certain space in which you can see that it's not real what you're looking for, and then you kind of move on. But
see, this is my
like,
experience with enlightenment. Just and then last thing, I guess, and
no worries.
To keep, at the risk of continuing to reference my child, I'm in full dad mode. Can you tell?
Beautiful dad.
That's beautiful. Hey, like a child is like the best personification of consciousness that you can possibly have, because there's no filter built yet.
If you open yourself up to it, they are the biggest life teacher ever.
Oh, I'm sure.
I experienced, I guess, what I would call enlightenment from a probably strictly from a Buddhist perspective. I experienced enlightenment for a period of 2 days, the day my son was born. What I mean by that is when, we're in our, the fellowship that we go to, and they're talking about enlightenment, and you kind of read about enlightenment. It's experiencing, it's basically experiencing now. You're not living in present tense or past tense. You're experiencing everything strictly as it's happening, right?
That's it.
And for me, that was 2 days straight. The second my son was born, I immediately was just
now.
Exactly. And I didn't, and it was so hilarious because I didn't realize that I was there until I actually acknowledged the fact. I was standing in line at Starbucks, and suddenly it dawned on me. This entire period of time, I didn't have I was so full of whatever that is when your child comes into this world. I hesitate to call it love or anything like that at that point, because that just doesn't encompass what it is. But, the second they're there for however long, you are only experiencing what this next second is, because that's all you have the capacity for. You don't have, and maybe this is just dad brain, but you don't have any ability to think of what the future is going to be, because that's such a daunting thing in that exact moment. But you all likewise, nothing from that point forward that's happened previously, your life at that point leading up to that moment doesn't matter in the slightest. There is nothing that's ever happened to you that, be it good or bad, that holds any amount of weight in that exact moment.
You just are.
So 2 days straight of kind of just following this, you're just each second you're only doing what needs to be done, and you're only experiencing what needs to be experienced. And then suddenly in the line at Starbucks you go, oh, I get it. Boom, you're out. And then you're and then you're stuck, kind of go, oh, wait. Oh, shit.
How do I get you back?
Yeah. No, for sure. And I love hearing that. I love hearing that happened to you, like, when your son was born, because, like, what you just described, right, was the same exact thing that happened when it clicked for me, right? Time stands fucking still. It's like, it's not even time stands still. It goes bye-bye. Like, time isn't a thing anymore. You go, oh, there's just what's going on. Okay, here we go. Let's just cruise in this beautiful wave, right? That's why surfers always talk about, like, well, don't surf, just surf. You just got to, like, don't stand up. You just got to stand up, don't stand up though. Like, just do it. You know what I mean? But don't like do it without doing it. And it's like, I get what surfers mean completely, and they make complete sense, because of that. Like, don't try, just let what is happen, and that's so beautiful. I love that so much. That's so beautiful, man.
A nerdy
That's so
thing,
cool.
they throw a bunch of like meditators in MRIs, right? And they watch their brains. And we see that like the advanced Buddhist monks, within 5 seconds, they have things too, right? But the distinction in like their brains and what's happening is their ability to just notice without judging it, right?
Yeah.
And it's just that being present.
Swimming through the thoughts is what I like to call it.
Yeah.
You can't get rid of the thoughts. They're there. They're going to be there no matter what. It's your response to them that matters. That's what counts, because if you can go, okay, yeah, I like that. Nope, nope. Then you'll be just fine. But if you're like, I don't like that one, no, get that one away from me. No, I don't like this one either, which is what most of us do, on a daily basis. I find myself constantly doing that. Like, I don't like that thought. Oh, I don't like that thought. Instead of going, okay, there's that thought, and just kind of moving forward through it, we like to stop and go, like get it away from me. We're germaphobes of our thoughts, and it's like, your thoughts are your most valuable allies, because they'll tell you shit no one else will. They'll be super honest with you. But the drawback to that is they'll be super fucking liey to you too.
Or super abusive. Super abusive.
Yeah, or abusive. Yeah, they're absolutely abusive. I dare say that that's sort of the American way nowadays, right? Is you better be, being hard on yourself, otherwise, you're not a true patriot, or whatever. You got to sort of have this like this guilt factor that's sort of always in play, right? And that's where a lot of people are on autopilot. They're just like, you got it, yeah, you got it. Like I know I won't say names, but I know some people that will just hang on to negative stuff. Like they will go almost, they'll look at a situation and like they'll dig for something negative in the situation just to be able to have something to complain about. And it's like, I don't know. I did that for a long time. So I guess I do know. There's a moment of clarity for Daniel solving itself right in front of your eyes. But I guess I do know. I used to be that way. And it was all about, making sure I was okay. That was where my brain was at whenever I felt that way, So I don't know, maybe something to think about. But I have a lot of beautiful times now because I've become, those of you who knew me, let's say 10 years ago, I'm a completely different person now. Like I don't like the guy I was 10 years ago. I was an asshole. I was a total piece of shit who really did only care about himself. Really. And it's, we all sort of have that, there's none of us are immune to that. Every single person hearing this right now, watching this right now, you're guilty of this too.
Oh, yeah.
So don't think you're an exception to the rule.
Red hand.
That's human nature. We fuck up. We screw up. But the important part is like recognizing that you do that and then owning up to it, not to other people. I could tell you guys all the great shit I've done and all how I deserve good treatment and I did this so I deserve this. No. None of that matters. I need to actually feel like I'm not a fuck up. Which takes a bit of work, but it's possible. And I don't feel like a fuck up. I feel like a pretty good person. And honestly, all of you do too. And the stuff that happens that makes you not a good person only comes about when you're only focused on you. If you focus on other people, your whole life will just change. Like everything about it will just shift. That's the secret ingredient that nobody ever tells you growing up. They sort of hint at it maybe in the golden rule and stuff, right? Like do unto others the way you want things done to you. But completely taking yourself out of the mix, out of the equation, you know, making yourself not a variable, all of a sudden gives you, you know, that hand up we were talking about, that like upper hand and like bettering your life. You know, secretly, the trick to it is to give up the benefit that it gives your life. If you give up the benefit that it gives your life, all of a sudden, magic happens. Because it's about giving. It's about love. Love, I would dare say that love is complete and utter allowance, no matter the consequence. Complete and utter allowance, no matter the consequence. Now, recognize what I'm saying. I'm not saying that allowing yourself to just do whatever and like you're not going to have consequence to that. What I mean is, let's just say, for instance, that my wife wasn't happy in this relationship and she wanted to go be with somebody else. Actual love says go for it. Actual love says go for it. I'll be bummed as fuck. But I love her and I want her happy, regardless of the consequence it has on me, right? And that's how I know, like, I love my wife. I have no doubt in the world that I love my wife, because she could fucking do the worst thing you can even think, period. Whatever that may be. It's not enough for me to stop loving her. And that shows me that, like, that's real love. Like, I don't need to gain anything from loving her. I already have by loving her. Exactly. And like, so I would say love is complete allowance, you know, complete utter allowance. No matter what the case. And I would argue that that's what you are. That's what God has given you, right? If you're going to talk in Christian terms, God has given you ultimate love because it's what you are. It's complete allowance. Like I've said it time and time again, you are nothing. Nothing cannot be affected. Therefore, nothing has complete allowance. Nothing literally can be anything. And that's love. That's what you are. You are love. Love is all there is. It's your refusal to that truth that deludes that fact. Doesn't diminish the truth of it. It just deludes the truth of it so that you don't see it. You know, which is why, Dustin, sometimes I do the same thing. Fuck the world, man. Fuck all the people, and I fuck everything, and fuck it all, and I fucking fuck it all. I do that all the time. I get so irritated. I get so irritated about stupid stuff too, right? Like little stuff. Yeah. This damn fork wasn't clean. No, I'm just kidding. But I may as well be that stupid though. Like for real, because you know. The beauty of life is life. Period. That's the beauty of life. And to just diminish it as something that's not beautiful by being like, fuck it all, you know. That's selfish. That's because it's not helping me.
Right.
Well, I would argue taking that a step deeper, that's because I'm not helping me. Like,
absolutely.
More than anything, the more work we do on ourselves, the easier it is to hold compassion for everybody else.
Absolutely.
Because we can say, oh yeah, I'm human. I do that. I see you. You be you.
Yep. I see you. Avatar. That's a quote from Avatar almost, right? Like, I see you. That's so beautiful. I love Avatar because it's kind of the hero's journey, right? And it's the Avatar, Matrix, a lot of those movies kind of all talk about sort of the story of life, right? Like the story of life is a universal story. It's called birth, the middle part, death, right? Like that's the story. That's the story.
Such an eloquent way to put it.
The middle part. Hey, man, I'm a scholar, so no, I'm just kidding. I went to a couple months of college, right? That counts as being.
I've been to college plenty of times.
I've been on the campus a couple times, man. They got good donuts. But yeah, I appreciate you guys being on the show. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Let's do this again. Can you guys come back on the show? Is that cool?
Anytime. We love talking to you, Dan.
Yeah, this was so fun. And our longest show to date. So.
Oh!
Hey.
Wait. Stop. My ego's getting happy. Let's throw that in the corner.
Fuck it, I'm rolling with it. Yay!
Life is an illusion and there's only nothing. There we go. We'll try to strip. All right. Well, I love you guys so much. And I suppose now's that time to tell all our people at home to like and subscribe to the channel. Got to get this ego-y layered stuff out of the way. Yeah. Oh, right there. It's right there. Look at that. But yes, thank you guys so much. Again, Tikina, Dustin, you guys warm my heart every time I talk to you guys. I'm so happy. You guys are the third guests, kind of. So you're technically the second guests because Jordan has been on twice.
Oh, okay.
But you guys are the third episode. So should be awesome. This was a great episode. One of my favorite parts is I don't even have to edit much of it. I just have to edit the beginning and the end of this thing and we'll be golden. So, all right. Well, until next time, folks, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Again, click like, click subscribe, click the bell, click all that stuff. And until next now, we'll chat about nothing. Peace.